Good afternoon, Sean Childs, fantasyanalyst.substack.com. Also got a data site, fantasyfootballpaydirt.com that I developed over the last month or so with the help of my son, Tyler Childs on the West Coast, pushed me in the right direction with the assistance of Claude AI. And I also put this new image in the background, just messing around with AI again for something else. And also, we're developing a predictive site for a sports hack AI, and all of my projections and stuff are kind of and all this are on all these sites for now. And my written content is on Substack and Sports Hack. It has a draft kit over there, and we'll see how that goes because the football season's about 2 weeks away. And next week we will be not next week, the week after we'll be pushing week one projections and data. Right now, if we're doing any fantasy football drafts, we're just hoping to survive without any more injuries, which is really, really difficult to do at this point of the year. But here we go. So I had a request from the West Coast, Toby Dixon, comedian that I went to see a couple shows in San Francisco in July. It was a lot of good time, talented performer, and I would like to see him again with his next project, Actual AI. That's another story though. But anyway, so this my good friend Kimberly Slicer did this draft on Sleeper, which is this is an 18 round draft with two quarterbacks. You can in super flex, you can play two quarterbacks or running back, wide receiver, or tight end the flex. But obviously, the worst quarterbacks in this type of format would outscore the back end of the player pool. So you always want to kind of have a quarterback at the second position. I don't do these drafts, so I'm not familiar with the draft flow. I could probably pretty easily evaluate where the drop off at the positions are. Just flipping back to Fantasy Football Pay Dirt to just kind of show what's going on. So I don't know any of the names that are in this draft of the ladies that drafted, but they've a good group of women that have done this for a number of years, and they got a lot of fight in them where winning this league is really, really important. So when you're at the front part of the draft in this, the challenge is some people will just want to take a quarterback or right out of the gate, but Gibbs, Robinson, some of those wide receivers, and even maybe one or two other backs are going to probably outscore some of the quarterbacks. But by getting the quarterback out of the way early, at least one, you widen the range when you have to get the second one, so you can kind of feel how the pockets of the draft go. So obviously the front of the draft, went normal. Gibbs, Robinson, Puka Nacua, a little banged up. Normally it would go third, slid to seventh in this draft. Chase got nicked up a little bit. They went ninth. If I was doing a main event in the high stakes market and I got Chase, I think he's okay, and I got him at ninth, I would be ecstatic. It would kind of be a good break. And but Smith-Njigba is the one that moved to wide receiver 3 and St. Brown number 4. So in the first round, we saw 4 quarterbacks go: Allen, Lamar Jackson, May, and Burrow. I am okay with 3 of those quarterbacks going in the first round. Jackson, I'm not 100% sold at that he is going to be the difference maker that he was 2 years ago. Obviously, last year he was hurt, missed a lot of time, and the team just didn't gel. But in a double quarterback league, I mean, he's going to be a good player. He runs. He's going to get his foundation stuff. So, and tight ends aren't really that great in Baltimore. His Flowers will catch a lot of passes, but not a big touchdown score. So when you look at it, like who's going to score how many? When you look at the receivers, how is he going to get 30 receiving touchdowns? 2 years ago, when he had the great season, Andrews had 11 and Bateman had 9. That was 20 of them. When you look at those players this year, they've backed up a little bit. So, anyways, but you take who you want, get it out of the way, and so we're coming back in the second round, and 3 more quarterbacks went. So, I guess the easiest way to look at it is just to see. Kind of go through the teams and see how the teams set up for the quarterback, and then back into some of the other earlier positions. And I don't want to make this last too long, maybe a half an hour or so. But so team 1 waited till the 5th round to take a quarterback and ended up with Mahomes and Mayfield. Mahomes coming off injury, might not play week 1. We know his history. He's he needs Worthy to be a lot better receiver. He needs Rice on the field for the whole season, and he needs to squeeze one more good season out of Kelsey and maybe one receiver to kind of develop and at least chip in to reach more of that elite status that he's been when he had that that great run in the Super Bowls and winning it and getting there. And we'll see if KC can rebuild their defense and offense this year, because both areas are moved in the wrong direction for different reasons in the offseason and last year. Mayfield had his best year 2 years ago by a wide margin. He was banged up last year, had injuries at wide receiver, just really kind of didn't get it going. Don't think of him as the same player, but he's kind of a gamer, doesn't run a lot. But, two decent quarterbacks. I would think that both of them, Mahomes should, average well over 20 fantasy points in 4-point passing TD leagues. And Mayfield is a pretty secure player that he's going to beat a lot of players, the second quarterbacks. I think it would probably be a mid-tier a quarterback 2 in this type of format. I think he finished 12th last year on a down year, so that kind of gives a reference point. He didn't play well, was banged up, and he still finished 12th. So, pretty good there. So he went Gibbs, London, A-Chain, Jacobs, loaded up on running back position, and then finished out with McLaurin, Odunze, Addison. So all of the structure of the wide receiver is pretty good. He got depth at running back. The tight end, he hooked up with one hookup, and just the back end of the roster. Like I said, I'm not going to get too much into it, but the structure of that team looks pretty competitive, especially when you get the edge with Gibbs. You get a pass catcher with H-Han, and then London's a volume guy that can potentially score double-digit touchdowns. Jacobs is more of a wild card. And realistically, if you're going to draft that player that early, you probably need to handcuff him at this point. And I will see if I can see no handcuff on Lloyd. And Lloyd went pretty late here, so really a good opportunity to probably handcuff and didn't get it done. So team 2 takes the edge with Bijan Robinson. Come back and take Barkley, looking for a bounce back season. Should be a value in most fantasy drafts in the second round. But is he worth gambling over the quarterbacks? And as you can see, this team took Pickens next, and no quarterbacks went until the middle of the third round, and then 4 more went off the table. So Herbert, Prescott, Lawrence, Dart, and then Goff, Purdy, Nick. So I would think if Knicks would have made it to the front for team 2 or 3, they would have been pretty happy with it. But after that, when you get to that area, Mahomes was obviously presented himself as probably a pretty good value based on this draft flow, because he's done it before. He's coming off an injury. Even if he missed one game, you can probably get his replacement in this league. And just for reference, before I go there, I did take a look at, because it's 18 rounds, I wanted to see what the quality of the free agent pool would be at some of the positions. So, those are the Penix was the top quarterback, and most likely he's going to get the start. You got Beck and Fields, and so there's really nothing at quarterback. You got Ray Davis of Buffalo, Allen of Washington has some upside as handcuff. Blue is a backup running back, a handcuff for Hampton out of the Chargers, and kind of Najee Harris. So there is a little bit of help at running back as a rotational player, maybe our RB4 on some teams, and Claiborne a little further down was decent. At wide receiver, the first one was Branch of Atlanta, possession guy, Mitchell, Fields. Trey Harris had a little bit upside, but he doesn't have his really a defined role with 2 good guys in front of him, a little nicked up. The Tesla guy from Detroit isn't having a good camp, but he's more of a guy that could score touchdowns. And then not really much there. And then really at the tight end position, there's nothing that really jumps off there. So even though they did 18 rounds, it's not like the quality of the free agent pool is going to be that great. In most leagues that they would do in the high stakes market 20 rounds, but when the ESPN and Yahoo they do their 16 round leagues, and they do it to upgrade the quality of the free agent pool, and they also do it to keep more action on their website where people are looking to pick up players and staying on it and looking at stuff. And it makes it really, to me, it makes it hard to manage, because you're a lot of times you're debating whether this guy that's in the waiver wire is better than the guy that you can put in your starting lineup. And anytime you have in fantasy football, the more decisions you have, the more mistakes you can make. And so that's just another level of that. And in addition, this league is a trading league. So you have the opportunity, if you have some assets at a position, you might be able to package something to improve your quarterback, second quarterback or first quarterback, or even some other position. So, the trading part of it is a whole different dynamic. Might be hard to pull off in this group of people, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, so back to team 2, came back with Murray, who I have him rated pretty high. I respect him more than most. Interesting, took over Mahomes, which, like I said, proven resume. But like I said, if Nix would have made it, would that person have taken Nix with potentially Murray, and would that have worked out pretty good because the team 1 didn't double? I'm not really a fan of Stafford this year, more that players that are having career years in the next season tend to not repeat, and especially in touchdowns. Just something in the Rams could go sideways. He threw for like 46 touchdowns last year. He was great. The offense, the Rams look good. Their defense should be good. There's no complaint about them. And if Puka Nacua gets paid, stayed on the field, and Adams plays well, they have enough tight ends where, Stafford is going to have another good season, but he offers nothing in the run game. So it's not like a knock of Stafford, because he gets, he's pretty fairly priced, and what you're looking at, what he can do, he doesn't have to do what he did last year to still pay off. I think he was like first or second quarterback in scoring last year, which is really, really impressive considering what he came into last year. So anyways, DJ Moore coming out of the next turn, came back and got Shaw from the Saints. So to me, that's kind of an older quarterback. I wasn't a fan of her. Really knocked him last year because of, I'm not a fan of NFL teams drafting older players at quarterback or even running back when their shelf life isn't that long. So I think this year he starts the year at 27. There's a ton of quarterbacks that have starting jobs that are a lot younger, but he played better than expected, add a little more value in the run game. So, and the Saints, offense looks better this year than last year with Olave developing, and they added Travis Etienne to the offense. Came back, got Price as a value, and the 7th round which is helped by the quarterbacks getting drafted. Stribling's kind of a push because now he really needs to be a wide receiver too, but you still have McCaffrey in front of him. You have Kittle in front of him, and you have Evans. If all those players are on the field, then Stribling is really the 4th option in the passing game, and then he has to compete with Deebo Samuel for that opportunity. So kind of a tricky play there. I'm not sure he's strong enough. I would have definitely taken Odunze over him, because he comes into the regular season probably as the wide receiver 1, but could be the second option in the passing game behind Colston, with Burden a little banged up. But Odunze really didn't get it done last year. Brooks is just a complimentary back. Probably would have looked for a wide receiver in that situation, just because the 3 running backs are really, really strong on this team. I'm not even sure you can play. I don't know if it's a double flex, if you can play 3 running backs in your start lineup, which I should probably have looked that up, but I wasn't really thinking of that. But anyways, but that possibly could play 3 running backs with 2 quarterbacks, which would change the dynamics of not having as many wide receivers. Came back with Golden, which is a player that didn't develop, first-round draft pick for Green Bay, didn't like him. Greg Ambrosius, the NFBC gentleman who runs it, big fan of the Packers. Told him last year, I thought it was, you can't take these little speed guys in the first round. You want those big foundation, they can get 100 catches, a lot of yards and score double-digit touchdowns, and Golden didn't fit that profile. I do think he was open a lot, and the quarterback didn't get on the ball, so we'll see how he progresses, but I don't know what level he will get to. More of a, to me, it's like a wide receiver 3-4 anyways, and Shaheed is more of to me, he's a tough player to find. He's in Seattle, probably a pretty good situation, but more of a big play threat that doesn't have the volume to make him. What he does is invites more decision making. So came back with Robinson, sniped team 1 on the handcuff, which was pretty good. So, I would like to see the quarterback position break a little better there. But what are you going to do? Take the edge with Pickens, got the running backs, and we'll see. But, pretty good starting spot. Might have some assets to upgrade the QB2, and that team could be a lot better if that happens, especially if some quarterback got off to a slow start and maybe a player or two got hot, they can kind of transition over there. So team 3, the Jigba, Genty banged up. Don't know how much time he's going to miss. Wasn't really discounted. He was discounted some, but not really because this format has all those quarterbacks, not as high. Kenneth Walker, a little banged up too. Don't know what his status is. Little ankle thing is swelled up. It's hard enough winning fantasy football when you're healthy, but when you're drafting players that are already nicked up, you're kind of against it. I already mentioned Stafford came back with Higgins, pretty good receiver, has a history of injuries. Darnold coming off a really, really impressive season for him, more of a balanced offense, but he won a Super Bowl, had 35 touchdowns a year before in Minnesota. Come back with Laporta, nicked up tight end, really thought he was going to be in a soft spot this year, and he got a little banged up, and he could be okay, but that's the key to his season. Sutton's nice and steady. Kincaid is an okay tight end too. I think he's talented. He had 72 catches in his rookie season, but last year he was on the field only 53% of the time and just not living up to expectations. And when you look at it, it's can he be on this field for 80% of the snaps and they rotate other players in? Buffalo wanted to run the ball. I know he's, the reports have been better and he could be produce a lot higher this season, but I'm not 100% sure that I want to fight for him where if you would have asked me before I did the research, I thought he would be pretty good value. And I had him last year on a lot of teams because I thought he was in a good spot. And Curham's a guy that everybody likes upside. Lemon going to Philadelphia draws a wide receiver 2 role with A.J. Brown out of there. So a little bit of injury risk on this team. Decision-making could be a little different just to protect up front. But, player-wise, it's still alive. Darnold and Stafford both are non-running quarterbacks, kind of dependent on one receiver each. I mean, I guess Stafford could, has Adams, but he's really older. And if it went sideways, I think he's still good enough to make plays if he was the wide receiver 1. And but the ceiling of the team wouldn't be as high if Puka Nacua had a injury or was out of the equation. So team 4, St. Brown, getting a lot of more respect this year than last year. There was 2 or 3 wide receivers and some running backs that got drafted in front of him, and he had a proven resume, but everybody's treating him as a solid asset. I really like the Trey McBride coming back in other formats because I potentially got 2 guys that can catch 100 balls. In the quarterback thing, is McBride more of an advantage than you would get at quarterback? That's going to be a tougher call, especially where this team came back and took another wide receiver and pushed back the quarterback even more. So in this case, I do like Nix. I got him rated 4th, this in my projections, and he gets drafted as the 16th or 14th quarterback. Really hasn't moved. He's had 33 and 29 touchdowns. They added Waddle. I think he has a lot of upside. So I think that's a pretty good value where he went in the draft. I definitely would take him over Stafford, Murray. The Mahomes thing, I would take Nix over probably Mahomes because, the health issue and his weapons look a little bit deeper. And Denver, is going to play from the lead and they got a good coaching staff. Not that the Chiefs don't, but so I like that. But it came back with Daniel Jones last year. When he was in the starting lineup at the beginning of the year, I mean, first 10 games, Indianapolis averaged 30 points a game. The Keenan Allen replaces Pittman. I think that's helpful. Looks like Pierce is coming back off the injury this week and going to practice. He's a big play threat. I think the structure by getting Allen kind of puts Pierce back in the role. They paid him a ton of money, which is, I can't believe these running backs can't get paid, and these wide receivers with a lot less resumes are getting jobs. But anyways, so Jones can run a little bit, helps his floor, showed something last year. They really liked him in Indianapolis, but did the team just play well last year? And is that repeatable this season? He has 3 decent receivers. Tyler Warren's a little banged up. Got a good tight end. You got a top running back, and they will be more of a balanced team. So based on where he went and what he did last year, that's a pretty good combination if both players live up to expectations. In between, after taking Collins, a really good player, really hasn't pushed higher than you did a couple of years ago because he missed his time. But I think it's more falling back on the quarterback. The quarterback was able to drive the ball downfield a little bit better in his rookie season. But comes back with a running back Williams of Dallas, a nice steady player that emerged after a couple down seasons with Denver, just in an injury season. Adams the reports have been really, really positive about him. Come back with Judkins, which is an upside running back that potentially could get 300 touches if he's evolved enough in the passing game. Comes back with Thomas, who was the fourth best wide receiver 2 years ago, was a bust. He was banged up all last year. Everybody, Parker Washington's the guy in this draft. Parker Washington went in front of him. Jordan Mason, not really a fan of him because I think that he's kind of limited with like an early down back. He makes big yards per rush, but not going to be really involved. And they're going to rotate somebody else in with him. And he has a little bit of injury risk. And Josh Downs, kind of matches up with the quarterback, Broncos defense, and whatever. So, overall, I do. Other than Mason, I kind of like how this whole thing developed. Backed up Judkins with Sampson, Marks, and I wonder if I don't know what the other quarterback. And I do like the Singleton pick later. So really, pretty good structure on that team. Like I said, but Mason's doesn't have to be a difference maker, and doesn't even have to be in the lineup when you have realistically two other front running backs in front of him, and then you got four pretty good wide receivers. So, and a good tight end. So it will be interesting to see how that team runs the course of the season. Might even have some assets to make some moves to trade away. Team 5 went out of the gate. Take Josh Allen, best quarterback in the league realistically combined for the last 3 or 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is. His passing output has gone down a lot last couple of years, but he compensated that by being a beast, scoring rushing touchdowns, moving in close. He's first or second in projections in most people this year. I have him, Drake May, believe it or not, in front of him, and Burrow's pretty close for me too. But so he grabs the edge with Allen, came back, takes the edge with Bowers, and Bowers has a pretty high ceiling, but he was hurt last year. So once you have that injury, you still have that little bit of injury tag where McBride's been pretty steady and been in the field and done a lot and scored last year. So the conversation between Bowers and McBride is a lot closer, and you can make a case for either one of them. McBride's a little more proven. Herbert has been getting a lot of press. They like the direction of him, the offense. Last year he was sacked 60 times. It was really, really a problem. He was banged up in the second half of the year. He played through, I think, something happened to his left arm, which shouldn't be that much of a significant factor, but it definitely was, and he just didn't really reach where he was. I mean, early in his career, you thought he led the league with like 700 pass attempts and I think close to 40 touchdowns, and so he has that kind of talent and new offensive coordinator, so he potentially could be a great value. And they have pretty good tight ends, good pass catching back that they don't use the running back, and then you have the three receivers that they can kind of rely on at wide receiver. So so based on where he goes, so this is more of a traditional, get two good quarterbacks, fill it out from there. Takes Bowers, comes back with Rice. Rice is one of the players that if you take a draft in the third round of a draft, he's a guy that could catch 100 balls, score double-digit touchdowns, get plenty of yards. He's kind of the perfect profile in a normal format as a wide receiver 3. But in this case, this is a wide receiver 1, but he does have that skill set to deliver that if he stays healthy and Mahomes does what he wants. So I really like that pick there. Breece Hall, pass catching back, kind of been a disappointment for me. A little nicked up last year, but he played through a lot of injuries. He kind of gets a little more ding for me than most. Most people think that he'll bounce back and have a really good season. I think the Jets will rotate other backs in, but at the same time, Hall has like this underlying, for me, a thought that he has some injury risk, but he can do it all. I mean, he can catch passes. He can make big plays. He could score touchdowns. He just needs that team to be better. And the offensive skills, the Jets added the offensive players in the offseason to make that team better I don't know if Geno Smith is the answer at quarterback. I do like the backup, what he potentially could become, more of a running quarterback, but he could throw the ball. He wasn't like a beast we considered, in college. He was very good at Clemson and stuff like that. So I think that even if Smith didn't play and they played the backup, I think the backup quarterback would be comparable, or maybe even offer a little more fantasy upside because of the ability to run, and he might make the players be able to extend the passing window a little bit. But so Hall is he falls in neutral area, but he is a good player. Henderson, perfect guy for, coming off a great season with upside. He got nicked up the other day. I don't know exactly what his status is. I really didn't release it, but it's 2 weeks before the year. He should be back, and I think that's going to be an interesting player to watch, especially if I drafted him. And so I didn't do a lot of best balls this year. I got to behave myself until I get my career back on track of what I'm doing here. But anyways, he's a guy that could score 30 points, or he could be the guy that gets, 10 carries for 30 yards and does nothing, but he does offer the explosiveness. Mike Evans goes into a really good spot in San Francisco. I think he's going to match up well for Purdy, but he's already banged up a little bit. He's coming off, a season where he didn't get 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. He had 2 injuries. He's kind of floating around with stuff going on with him, but probably going to play week 1. Has long enough resume, know what he can do. He does, he's not really fast, but he's a big guy that gets open and he catches balls and he scores touchdowns. So, so he fits what you're looking for. I'm a big fan of Fannin. I think he's overlooked, mispriced in draft. I would much rather have him with Kraft coming off an injury. Laporta a little nicked up. Laporta would probably have a better opportunity because Detroit could score a little bit more. Pitts had a great season, but does he have follow through? The quarterback play is kind of spotty, but Fannin, I think he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver for Cleveland. I mean, not number 1 wide receiver, but number 1 target in the most stuff. A lot of people are bumping up those young receivers for the Browns. The quarterback play is still, messy. Watson, is he going to do it? Sanders, is he going to come behind and be better? A lot to prove at the quarterback position, and they have to clean up the sack. So Metcalf, kind of a value, been a top wide receiver, a top 25 wide receiver multiple years, get drafted in, 3, 6, 9th round. So pretty good value there. Can score touchdowns. Godwin's a proven, veteran guy as a wide receiver 4, and then bangs out a third quarterback to rotate in for the bye weeks and stuff. So pretty good there. Rashad White catches a pass catcher. Shakur, I don't think they said they're going to use him a little different, but he's like a 60 catch guy, got a resume. Tracy gets squeezed. I'm not a fan of the Charbonnet, because of, I don't think he's going to be back. So, and Travis Hunter has upside, but I think this draft structure came out well. Lots of values there. Saw the upside, was able to capitalize on it. Just needs a little bit of health, with Evans and Hall for me. And then obviously Rice needs to make sure he stays on the field a little bit. So team 6 for Lamar Jackson, he scored 480 fantasy points 2 years ago. It was awesome. The head coach has moved on, but the guy that's the head coach is now was the defensive coordinator, I believe, or whatever. But anyways, new coaching staff. I don't think much is going to change structure-wise, how they run it. Stan Henry's going to be the volume guy. And Beast, Lamar doesn't score as much as he does in the past. He still will make a lot of yards in the run game, but he doesn't have that electricity, I think, that he had earlier. A.J. Brown goes to New England. He potentially could be one of those receivers that gets double-digit touchdowns. May led the league last year in completion rate, like 72%. And he gained 8 yards per pass attempt with below average talent. So it's pretty, well, usually when you got quarterback, averages that high of a completion rate, they throw to the running back position a lot. So their yards per completion are a lot lower, maybe 7.2 or something like that. Because you can look at Knicks. Knicks is under 7, and Peyton's has a history of throwing a running back. But anyway, so Brown goes in a pretty good situation where the quarterback can get the ball downfield. He has size, can have a presence, so he kind of fits what you're looking for. He fits that profile of like I described with Rashee Rice. Could potentially get 100 catches. He hasn't done it in the past because Philadelphia was really kind of a high volume run team. So pretty excited to see what Brown does in New England. I'm from New England, but I don't have I lived through the Brady era, but I wasn't I didn't live through them like the Red Sox. The Red Sox, I had the failure, a lot of emotions tied to them for years as a younger guy. With the Patriots, just weren't the same passion, but they won and you followed them. But I wasn't like a rah-rah guy. But anyways, you come back with Chase Brown, perfect offense to be in. As far as chances, he'll catch some balls, get his yards. The only drag on him is compared to some of the other running backs, a little smaller back, and you don't think of him as a guy that's going to score, 15 rushing touchdowns. He'll get 4 or 5 passing. He'll maybe get 7 or 8 rushing. They'll rotate another back a little bit, and then he has to hold up for the whole season. But he fits really good, because they could throw the ball 650 times. The quarterback could throw for well over 5,000 yards. He could get 45 plus passing touchdowns. So that's great opportunity. It comes back with Purdy. I'm a fan of Purdy, just that so many of those pieces of that puzzle are banged up other than him this year. And he has missed time in the past for injuries. But if everybody stays healthy and the Stribling guy can develop as expected, I mean, Purdy runs a little bit. I mean, he does a lot. He is, he finished, I think, 29th at quarterback last year and missed a bunch of games. But he realistically, when he was on the field, when he came back at the end of the year, he had some really, really more dynamic games. So there's more to his ceiling. And I think that he is right in that range where, I mean, I probably, Goff has been the top 6 quarterback. Like Purdy, if Purdy didn't have all the baggage with the guys, having the injury tags right now, McCaffrey and Evans and stuff, and Kittle coming off an injury, I think that Purdy would probably go a little bit higher. But good value there. ETN goes to New Orleans. Kamara got banged up. Let me just take a little drink here. So when I did the week 1 projections for New Orleans is going to Detroit, and you can see it. It's clear as day that when they're playing that game, that offense is going to flow through ETN and Olave. Olave is going to get a lot of targets, probably a chaser game, and the Saints are going to lean on their number 1 new sign running back because the other running backs on the team aren't as good as Kamara, and Kamara getting banged up already earlier in the year. That's a problem because that just shows ETN could gain more momentum. He's really kind of was never got this great opportunity catching the ball. A couple years ago, Ingram got like 117 passes. I don't know how many times I saw Ingram go out one side and ETN go in the flat on the other side, and they threw to the tight end who was a lot less explosive and not give their playmaking running back a chance to make some plays. But so I think that's, I think he goes in a good spot. I got a little bit of shine. Yes, the last time I did a video, I was wearing his jersey. Really liked him when he came out as a rookie. Ibuka's got a toe issue. Everybody liked him last year. He lost a little bit of momentum, and realistically, based on the draft flow, he went behind a lot of receivers that typically would go, he would go in front of in other drafts. So capitalize on the value there. Tootin is a mover in the drafts. Last year I did my profile, and I said that he could been the, I'm trying to look at it, see the, could be the Bucky Irving of last year. He scored, I think, 8 touchdowns, 4 rushing, 4 receiving or something, but he doesn't have a big pass catching profile. They have a big back that they're going to rotate that might steal goal line carries. So I think he's a guy that is not going to get the bulk of touches there, because he hasn't shown it in thing, but I think he is going to be explosive. He's really, really fast. Works Predator as a RB3, and it works a lot better when you're drafting him in the 7th round rather than people are taking him in the 4th or 5th where he has to kind of do it. So, but I do think he's talented, and it makes a lot of sense where he went. So no misses other than like Lamar going in the 1st round, but Lamar comes back. It's fine. Kittle coming off an injury, been a guy that can score touchdowns, matches up with a quarterback like that, comes back with Diggs, veteran, going to do something. Pittman, another guy that's a veteran, goes to no offense. Quentin Johnson's been there before. So really kind of got really the structure of filling out the back end of the wide receivers after getting the quarterbacks and some decent running backs. Pretty good. 5 options of proven options to rotate through bye weeks. It looks pretty good. Concepcion has upside. We'll see what happens in Cleveland. Like I said, I mentioned him with Fannin. I'm not as big a fan. I don't think Judy's going to go away, even though everybody's writing him off. They basically give him to you. And Coker's pretty good. Brissett getting the 3rd quarterback. That's pretty good insurance. Get you out of the gate. Rotational player. Last year they threw a ball a ton 649 times, and then you have the ability where you might be able to snap up his backup if it looks like they're not winning games, and still having 3 quarterbacks in this format's pretty good. So I think that this team did a pretty nice job. Back end, I don't see anything James Conner, and the tight end there, I'm not so sure. Maybe a little better tight end insurance, but you should be able to find somebody in the waiver wire. Not many drafts you're going to see Puka Nacua go get paired with Jefferson this year, and Nacua he's got some minor injury, I'm sure, but this guy is, I think he's in his 4th year of his contract and making no money, and you're watching all these other guys get paid, and you're going to go out there and knock your head off for Rams and take physical and risk getting hurt. He really needs to get paid. If I was him, I'd just, right at the last week, sit out and force the Rams to pay him. I don't care what he's doing on the sidebar of the off the field stuff. He's been a great player on the field, and I think the reports were pretty good in the summer, that he lost a little bit of weight and stuff like that. But, you give a pocket full of money, it could go sideways. But, as far as an NFL player, he's done a lot. He's worth a lot of money, and he's already done a lot for the, Rams for nothing. They should pay him and get this done before the start of the year. And I guess there is, today I saw, he potentially could get suspended. I don't know why the NFL has to wait till the deadline of all this stuff and can't get it done earlier, in the season and stuff like that. But great receiver. Jefferson, got 80 catches and 1,000 yards last year somehow with a crappy quarterback play. Murray's been a guy that hasn't really been a good deep ball player, where 2 years ago, Darnold was excellent at that. He got the ball downfield to both of his wide receivers and made big plays. He did take some sacks, but he's willing to challenge the defense, and that's what the coaching staff of the Vikings have to get out of Murray this year. But Murray gets the help of, he can run to buy more time, and I think that the other question is, will he throw the ball 550 times, or will Minnesota really kind of air it out like a couple years ago, because they threw the ball with Cousins a couple times, well over 600 times. So, but either way, Jefferson needs the quarterback to throw a little bit more, and not sure he's going to get all, double-digit touchdowns, but great player. A couple years, he's the top, could be, he's the same as Chase. He's the same as all those other receivers. Derrick Henry, volume running back, scores touchdowns. Is probably going to end up top 5 all time in scoring touchdowns in history of football. Loveland, pretty good value there, but really punting the quarterback position back here now. McConkey come back with Flowers. So McConkey and Flowers steady, Loveland upside, Henry steady, but now can you get out at quarterback? Takes Harvey as a second running back. I have him rated 13th. He's going like 29th in leagues and stuff like that. So this, cheated the quarterback position, but you could see once Mayfield went on the board that they all kind of quit for, basically 3 rounds. This team was the only team to take two quarterbacks. So did they capitalize on, the soft spot in the drafts where everybody kind of had their quarterbacks? So every so team 4 didn't take their quarterback until after the second quarterback until after them. Every other team. So the only other team that wasn't going to take a second quarterback. So most of them look like, let's just make sure we get 2 touchdowns. So Stroud has a really good receiver. Lost his number 2, the receiver Higgins, but they got Booty from New England, and it's Ray that kind of upgrades. I think Dell's a wild card if he came back and be healthy. But Stroud hasn't proven that he could be better than the league average. And Willis is a player that can run. I did something today as him being kind of a value quarterback and kind of sneaky, more of a sleeper, because he can run. He throws the ball pretty good, but you don't know what you're going to get out of the wide receiver position, because the Washington, the receivers are small, scat guys, don't score a lot of touchdowns. They don't really have a tight end that's going to do a lot of damage in touchdowns or yards. The running back will catch a ton of balls, when you got unknown assets in the receiving game. The defenses can defend the run a little bit better, but they do have Bell, and I think Douglas as another wide receiver, and Tolbert's kind of a guy that's been with Dallas, and he has a 7 touchdown season with 50 something catches, a little more proven, where Willis might squeeze more than you think out of him, and his running floor is pretty high. as far as all the quarterbacks, but he also has to prove he can stay healthy for the whole year. So I think that potentially these quarterbacks could average close to 20 fantasy points, and that would probably keep it in the game. I'm not sure that some of the earlier decisions, like even taking, I guess when I'm saying taking Harvey, I mean, really didn't give up anything. He took the advantage at the running back position because the quarterbacks were wiped. So nothing there. Flowers, everybody thinks he's going to be a top, 15 wide receiver. Got him there, McConkey. So, it's just a matter of the draft flow and decision making. And I can't say that, the players this team took in structure wise are really good. Even getting Tate as the extra receiver, people would kill. I've seen high state guys take him as a wide receiver 3 in the 4th round, and this is a wide receiver 5. But the only weakness is that if the running back position breaks down, and I was going to see if this team took Coleman to handcuff for Harvey, which I've been promoting all season, so I probably would have taken Coleman over Algier because I don't have the second. If normally Harvey would be a RB3, I'd have one other running back, so I would kind of protect Harvey because he's the RB2. I would protect him a little bit more. But Chris Rodriguez could score some touchdowns. Kamara coming off an injury, just fill in players at the back end, and Johnson does have upside. So it's an interesting. This one is kind of against the grain a little bit. Doesn't really have the monster backs. I mean, Henry can potentially get 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns and be fine and rank in the top 12. And like I said, I do have Harvey ranked a lot higher than most. But this would be the perfect win the league by waiting on quarterback to prove everybody else wrong. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Drake May, got him ranked number 1. Really like the changes of New England's offense. They got a wide receiver. They got 2 good running backs. Their offensive line, they added Campbell last year and another first round draft pick offensive line. Needs to develop a little bit. And I already described May, his completion rate and what he did in big plays. He has to be able to obviously repeat it the second season and stay healthy. Gives McCaffrey in the 2nd round. Great discount, considering that they haven't written him off, but he could potentially be the best running back in the league if he stays healthy because he is a 3-down back and he does a lot of stuff. The only thing he did wrong last year, he gained 3.8 yards per rush, which isn't really his fault. It's an offensive line problem, and Purdy was out for a bunch of games. So, great value there. Prescott it tends to be a value in all drafts. He doesn't run as much as you used to, maybe get a couple rushing touchdowns, but he's got really 2 good wide receivers. Set Dallas last year, gained 76% of their passing yards via the wide receiver position. So they really chuck it downfield, move the ball, he'll get chances. He's going to throw it over 600 times. So advantage at quarterback, advantage at lead running back. Smith comes back, moves to wide receiver 1, still for a team that's going to be run favoring. And he falls in, I would have taken Rice in front of Smith because of the double, I think he can get touchdown, but Smith has been consistently a player that's been a top 15 wide receiver and, 80 catches and does stuff. So I can't fault, I can't think it's a mistake because this is what you're in the mercy of. Rice went after it. Rice got a history. DJ Moore, Higgins. I mean, I think that I would have taken Smith in this situation. Warren gets discounted a little bit because of a little bit of injury, but he could be the number one receiving option for Indianapolis. Probably get that extra piece of the puzzle. Getting Allen on that team is going to compromise that a little bit, but really, really excited about to see what he could do. Only touchdowns is the key part for him. I guess I don't think of him as a guy who could score 7 to 10 touchdowns, but he is going to be active. Kind of left you at the end of last year, wondering, wanted more, I guess, because you wanted him to be more of a complete package, because seeing how he was drafted. But he finished as a top 4 or a 5 or 6 tight end and did a lot, and his opportunity should be better this year. David Montgomery goes to Houston. A lot of people like him, think he's a great value. I think that he falls in a situation where it is going to be a split. People are writing off Woody Marks. Marks is going to catch some balls. He's not going to be have the Gibbs role or anything like Montgomery. He's going to catch some balls. He's probably going to get the goal line chances and get volume, but he does miss some time. And he's, a nice player. in an offense that has a really good defense, would like to play from the lead, and would like to run the ball more and control the clock whenever possible. So, so I think that's a steady player. I'm not really looking at the flow of, like, I would, like, to me, Henderson was a lot more explosive. Price could probably reach a lot of higher ceiling. I probably would have taken Junkins over him because of the overall volume could be better. But Houston's offense is better than Cleveland's by a wide margin. I could say, just because of you looking at the quarterback. But okay, but steady RB2. Christian Watson, he's a player that's I think he gets drafted as wide receiver 24 in the NFFC and FFWC, or the Circuit World Championship, whatever it is now. He is a player that has a lot of talent, can make big plays, score touchdowns, but I think he's missed 20 out of his possible 68 games in his NFL career. Last year he started off and missed some time, but if he could average like 6.5 targets, he could outperform expectations. I put him in my fade column based on where he was going in ADP. But in this case, he's going 2, 4, 6. He's going in the 7th round. You throw in 2 quarterbacks, it's a little bit later. That's a different decision. But if people are pushing him up and taking him in the 3rd or 4th round, that's a big lot difference to me, because now you can compare Watson to other players on the board that potentially have better resumes. I do think he does a lot that I like, and but he just needs to stay on the field for 17 games. And if he did that, and like you said, he gets 6.5 targets, he'd be pretty special. Marvin Harrison missed on a great opportunity last year when Michael Wilson showed what he could potentially do in the offense, and then did that, what Michael Wilson do, actually affect compromise Harrison's opportunity this year, because now Michael Wilson is viable, can win one-on-one matchups, gets trust from the quarterback, has shown Arizona's coaching staff what he's done in the past. So it's an upgrade for their overall offense. But does Harrison, can he get to that wide receiver 1 ceiling that you thought when he got drafted? In the past, he would be more of a wide receiver 2. But in these type of drafts where he's going as a wide receiver 3, sometimes a wide receiver 4, that's great value, because he's probably going to score touchdowns like 7 or 8. And like when you're looking at some of those other players I'm describing that I would like to see double-digit touchdowns, he has that skill set. He has size. He can make big plays. All of the pieces haven't come together, but he does have the talent. So next round, Dobbins. I'm not a fan of Dobbins. I think he's an okay runner. I don't like the boring, only mostly volume carry guys and don't get many catches. I think that he'll be a player you can rotate well, and he'll score some touchdowns and not be dead in the water when he's on the field. I just don't think that he'll last the whole year, and I don't think he's a difference maker. But if you ask me of you got actually Team 2 took Jonathan Brooks. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why I was thinking Hubbard, but the 4th running back on Team 2 was Brooks, which is a lot better than Hubbard. I probably said that wrong because I was looking at Carolina. But anyways, Hubbard, Krosky Merritt, not a fan. Monaghan, whatever, is banged up. Everybody's taking Corum, Dobbins. It's a tricky thing. I would probably have gone another position. Let's see, Tate win one before it. So it's based on in the offense and stuff like that. I mean, you're going to take Corum, that's a backup running back with that potentially could be a lot better. Those other ones are, Hubbard has done it before. He's the other player to get hurt, which has happened. Krosky Merritt's got a lot of, so I can't knock where Dobbins got picked. Cam Ward, having the 3rd quarterback, it's a slam dunk. I probably would have taken Ward over him in the last round or something like that. Or I even would have taken Willis, actually, because rotating that extra quarterback in bye weeks is going to be important too. Gainwell, a pass catcher, kind of offsets a little bit. Worthy's a pretty good value because, he potentially could be like he was in his rookie season. He was awesome. He had a great Super Bowl, finished well, got hurt early last year and just wasn't, just never hit his stride. I like the upside of Coleman. So really good job. So I do the reverse. I'm looking for Harvey to match up with Coleman. In this case, matching Coleman up with Dobbins is probably more important, because if Dobbins got hurt, Coleman is going to be the early down back. He's kind of like 5'8", but I think he's like 220 and can catch it all. So he could be the beast. And that really is like that combination. So really nice job there. Came back McMillan has upside and Ravens defense and stuff like that, and Booty the last call there. So, different structure. I mean, a lot to like there. Like I said, I knocked Dobbins, where I wouldn't have taken him, but Coleman secures that spot, and then basically, can Montgomery live up to expectations in the quarterback? So, yeah, I kind of like it. A lot of good decisions in that draft. Jamar Chase, would love to get him at a discount, and as long as he could stay healthy, anyways. But especially where the thing is, like, a lot of people have drafted early and got Chase at 3-4, and even though like some of the events have like 3 RR, but you put them in the standard format with an 03 RR and you get Chase at the back end, you get some different combinations of players. Where if you're planning for an overall championship, it kind of could be something special. But in this case, it's a standalone league, so it's a little bit different. So Chase comes back with Williams, takes him over Herbert, Prescott, Trevor Lawrence. So what's the knock on Williams? He's got a great tight end that's developing. He's got 2 young receivers that developing, a good offensive coordinator. They throw to the back a little bit. So his only problem is his completion rate sucks. His completion rate needs to be a lot better. He runs a little bit. So if he could get, I think it was like 58% last year, maybe 63% his rookie season. If he could get over 65% and make some better throws, I think he definitely has the talent to. So there's a lot more upside there. So no knock on him. Trevor Lawrence scored 9 touchdowns last year. Got great wide receivers. He doesn't even have to score that much. Backs up a little bit as the structure of the running back position for me this year, but if the Jacksonville's wide receivers, the top 4, stay healthy, the combination of them are probably pretty good. Probably, I would say, talent wise or production wise, could be the best in the league, because Hunter has a ceiling of a wide receiver 1. Myers has proven. Everybody likes Washington, and then Thomas has already been the 4th best wide receiver in his rookie season, so I can't dismiss him. So Lawrence, good second quarterback. Kyren Williams, just steady running back that will catch about 30 balls a year, get double-digit touchdowns, has somebody knocking behind him, but the Rams really would like to split, run the ball split. So he falls into the steady piece to the puzzle at running back position. Basically, you have to take him over Jacobs. You have to take him probably over Williams a little bit. Williams doesn't do much in the passing game. Hall has a little bit of risk. So, so in ETN, I think I might like ETN a little bit better with Kamara getting hurt, but I don't think anybody's pushing it up there. So, all right, nice piece of the puzzle. McMillan of Carolina. Everybody drafted him, or not everybody, I shouldn't say that. In the high stakes market, he was getting drafted as a wide receiver 2, pretty high last year by some really, really sharp high end owners. He came back and this year, he ended up getting 70 catches for 1,014 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's a pretty good rookie season, and I think he was the 15th highest scoring wide receiver. But now he gets him. He goes in sometimes in the 4th round. In this case, he goes in the 5th round because of the quarterbacks. But I think that his natural progression would be to get to like 9 touchdowns, get to 80 catches, get more yards. In what happened last year, the quarterback threw for under 200 yards in like 8 games or something like that. But a lot of games he threw at 200 yards. So it wasn't the wide receiver's fault. The Carolina needs to throw the ball a little bit more. Comes back with Burden, matches up with his quarterback. Hopefully he's healthy. Everybody likes him. Catch rate was great last year. They really like what he brings to the table. Fantasy market, they were all over him early, but because he's not sure if he's going to be week 1, he's kind of discounted. So I like the pairing there. Kraft, coming off an injury, was explosive last year, did a lot. He would probably be the number 1 target for Green Bay this year. Players coming off injury, a little bit tricky. I would probably played it safe and take Fannin ahead of him, but I can't knock taking Kraft, and I can't say that he can be worse, or whatever. But Green Bay overall, they need to pass the ball a little bit better this year. But Kraft he showed it last year, so he's a tease. He's fairly priced, other than he's going to be a little bit maybe slow out of the gate coming off an injury. Stevenson was the better back in New England over the back half of the season. Will catch some balls, bigger back, will score some touchdowns, but the other player probably is a lot more explosive. And if Henderson can make a little better decisions on seeing cuts, against the grain, he could probably seize more touches. But Stevenson, long as he hangs on the ball, is going to be fine. I'm not a Tyson guy. He got banged up already, which, probably saved some people from he was getting drafted like as a wide receiver 3 ahead of a lot of players that have done something. The Saints have taken him and I think 8th overall this year in a draft, and he's a pretty talented, but he does have, he's shown that he has a history of getting hurt, and he's already got hurt, and he's going to miss 2 months. So you're going to have to sit on that player, but he does have upside, but you're going to be carrying him. The Monajai, running back for Chicago, played well last year in a relief role, had 2 or 3 or 4 good games for them. Not going to get a ton of passes, but we'll get some. Took a shot at Mendoza as a fill-in backup quarterback, which hopefully he will be there. What do we got? By week 7 and by week 10. So you need him to get in the starting lineup by week 7 to help. Does have some upside. Dobbs from New England seemed like he improved last year, in close at the goal line on one-on-one matchups. The reports, I guess, early in the summer weren't that great, but when they committed to, they removed one of the wide receivers by moving Booty to Houston to secure the opportunity there. Strange is a steady tight end, has some games to get 5 to 6 catches, not big yards and not a ton of touchdowns. Pacheco is kind of a giveaway for me. He's already got 2 injuries. And Allen's a decent player, but, he's got to worry about Davis there, and he's coming off an injury. But, as a flyer at the back end is fine. So I think there's a little – and I do like Tucker's a better player than I thought, but, maybe gives a little more insurance for Tyson. So I think that the front of it looks good, and there is a lot of upside to potentially start lineup. But in the back half, Stevenson's just steady, Tyson out. You got another running back's a little banged up in a split. You got Mendoza. I think that those, not adding helpful pieces to the puzzle maybe hurt this team a little bit in the bye weeks, but we'll see. Jonathan Taylor was just unbelievable, probably to like week 10 when Indy was averaging 32 points a game, scoring 3 touchdowns. I think he did that 3 times, making big plays. But when the team broke down and no quarterback play, it just fell on his face. Daniels 2 years ago was awesome. He just had that it factor. Offensive line problems. They lost their left tackle. They've signed somebody else, but a report the other day that their offensive line was a mess. So, but you have a running quarterback that has 2 decent receivers with Diggs and where is he? McLaurin, and not much at tight end. They don't really throw to the running back position. So the quarterback's, a lot of his value is what he can do in the run game, scoring touchdowns. Dart, he scored over 20 fantasy points in a lot of games, missed some time. He's got his number 1 receiver back. They upgraded the tight end position. They have a head coach that likes to run the ball and run a similar offense at Baltimore. So I think that fits well with Dart. The thing for him is that just can he stay on the field and avoid those hard hits? Hampton was getting drafted in the first round in a lot of drafts. Early in the summer, the coaches floated out that he potentially could be they're going to rotate the other 2, Mitchell and Vidal in there, but Mitchell gets hurt. I'm not I think you get it. He's talented, has speed or something, but there's something to be said to be staying on the field, and he has been unable to do that. So I don't think he's that much of a factor. And I think Hampton has the talent to be a lot better player. He does need the Chargers to throw to the running back position a little bit more to reach a higher, more consistent floor and reach a higher ceiling. But talent-wise, he has it. Last year, he showed it. He just unfortunately got hurt. Garrett Wilson didn't miss a game for first 3 years in the league, I believe. Last year, he missed on he got hurt, and he was doing okay with Fields at quarterback, but I think he had an ankle issue. So, Geno Smith kind of gets people just look it away because of Geno Smith, but he's a guy, Chad Schroeder, a couple years ago, best, most winningest high-stakes fantasy player, was drafting him 9th overall in a lot of high-dollar leagues, the single leagues, not the overalls, and, putting the stamps on him. So that just shows that a pretty sharp guy is placing their bet on him. And this year, the quarterback position probably isn't that much different than it was 2 years ago. And he is getting pretty discounted, but he's a talented receiver and does have upside. Swift had it coming off a really good year. little more balance where he catch some balls and he'll get like 7 touchdowns. He got over 1,000 yards. He had a little earlier in his career, he missed some time, and he had the ding of being a little bit of injury risk. But with the backup running back a little banged up, that's a little more solid play. I'm not in the camp of Pollard either this year, because I just think that Spears is, be a little bit of the pass catcher. Pollard doesn't score a lot of touchdowns, and I really like Singleton as potentially, and he could get in the way at the goal line. I think Pollard has done enough. He's gained over 1,000 yards like 4 years in a row. But he just kind of like feels like when you're taking him, he's just steady, not advantage. And this team's not taking, got the 2 quarterbacks and took the running back, but didn't take the wide receivers. And a lot of times when you take a lot of running backs and you set your lineup and you think you got them, but those running backs score 10, 11 points. I mean, those other receivers, the receivers that are in the mid-tier, they can get 30s once in a while. They can have big games. They can, the combination of their points can reach a higher ceiling. So where he has Garrett Wilson as number 1 and his 4th running back's Pollard, I mean, now he has to fill up the other 2 wide receivers. Obviously, Parker Washington is a guy that was tremendous the last 4 games of last year. I think full-time fantasy has him as the breakout wide receiver of the year. I probably shouldn't say that, but whatever. Anyways, but you could make the case 2 years ago that, Thomas had a similar finish to the year. He was awesome at the end of going into last draft season, so the last few games, and he ended up getting hurt. So, but Washington has to compete with Thomas. He has to compete with Myers, and then Hunter will get on the field some. So, and the quarterback does run a little bit. So can Washington really be a lot higher? In this case, he's getting drafted as a wide receiver 2 in the 8th round. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and pretty good value there, and has upside. Likely going to the Giants. I was not as excited as everybody else. I know Likely has history with the head coach, and he just didn't get to where you hoped he would be in Baltimore. And I know the quarterback was banged up last year, but I did like the backup the tight end for the Giants, Johnson, enough where I thought that the second tight end, it was going to get enough to hurt Likely ceiling. And then when you look at Baltimore, when their tight ends had so many catches, they didn't have a lead wide receiver, where you have Neighbors as that volume command thing for a quarterback that could run it. So Likely doesn't, to me, it doesn't, I think he's talented and he's a pass catcher and can do stuff. I just don't think, I'm not 100% sold that his opportunity is going to be as high as the excitement breakout might be. But at this case where he gets drafted, it's fair. Ferguson's more of a, catch 70 balls, doesn't score a lot. He scored a touchdown last year, 2 years ago, and I think he didn't score, but he gains like 8 yards a catch. He's more of a dump off option. So I think where he went, it makes a lot of sense. But I just wanted to get, describe that situation. Crosby Merritt's a little banged up, had a decent year last year, but he was mispriced because people didn't understand that he really wasn't a pass catcher, which really kind of removed him some from being active in some games when they fell behind. They had to, throw to somebody else, and Washington mixed in somebody. So to me, White's going to be the pass catcher and rotate on early downs. And then they're going to also, the Allen player potentially could be better than him that they got from Katron Allen and steal his job. I'd rather have Allen later than him. And then Wan'Dale Washington comes off a great year last year. It goes to Tennessee. The offense is a lot less, but he falls into that steady category where he's like a 5 for 50. You score once in a while. And so he's a steady piece, but not a difference maker. Same thing like, with the Pollard thing, some of these players, you're going to invite decisions and mistakes, Pollard, Crosby Merritt, Robinson. But Robinson, most likely, if you play him every week, is probably going to be, in that wide receiver 36 range, potentially better if the quarterback plays better and if you can squeeze a few more touchdowns out of him. Alec Pierce is really excelled last year, making big plays, and he's really, really good at that. The question coming into this draft season was, can he get the short stuff to get his catches up to like 70 to be a more complete wide receiver? And then, of course, that he gets banged up this summer. He's not on the field. He loses fantasy draft momentum. And then what do the Colts do? They add Keenan Allen to the mix to suck up that extra stuff to steal from downs from him and from their tight end, Warren. So, Pierce now profiles more of a 60 catch guy, 900 yards. He'll, maybe score 7 touchdowns. And I don't know, he's making a lot of money. I know that I look at these running backs that signed, Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, workhorse in the prime of their career, best in the game. And Pierce is, look, how many wide receivers get drafted in front of him, and he's going to make 140 million over the next 4 years. So just something like whatever. Come back with Jacoby Lane, getting some buzz there in Baltimore. Big, he has some size, 6'2", 200 pounds, I believe. Resume's doesn't knock, isn't off the chart in college, but he did score like 18 touchdowns in 29 games. Bateman's got a little bit of news in, off the field stuff that just came out this week. So can Lane pass him on the depth chart? At the same time, Andrews is at the back end of the career, and, will the tight ends, catches in the past that were in Baltimore that Jackson threw filter back to the wide receiver position, and that Lane be able to get higher. So I think I put on it last year that second best. I just wrote that today, that the second best receiver last year for Baltimore was Andrews. He had 48 catches for 423 yards and whatever touchdowns. It wasn't much. And then the year before, when Lamar was awesome, he had Andrews had 11 touchdowns. Bateman had 9, but Bateman was like 46 for 700. So he was the second best wide receiver. And I can't remember exactly what Andrews had for catches, but it may be like 55 or something like that, maybe 600 yards. It wasn't like, as high as it's been in the past, but it just shows that can that second receiving option in Baltimore get enough, especially when you think that Flowers is going to get, 90 catches, 95 catches, or, whatever his floor is. But I think, the upside's there. So a lot of these players at the back end here, between the third and fourth running backs and some of those receivers enters that discussion I said early on. You're going to have more decisions, and the more decisions that you make, you're either going to chase last week points or you're going to make mistakes. Took Mitchell to back up Hampton, which is fine. I probably would think that Vidal would be more of a guy that where he did it last year. I'd rather have him, even though Mitchell's kind of got the flash and stuff like that. And Cyrus Allen from Kansas City had a little bit of camp buzz early on and kind of backed up. So anyways, the third quarterback, Geno Smith, will be all right. Gain something back, at least in the bye weeks. And I went well over a half an hour, but hey, I'm talking about all these players, and hopefully somebody learns something for it and somebody actually watches it. So Team 11 took James Cook. I'm a fan of Cook because he plays for Buffalo in a high-scoring offense, and they say that he is going to catch a few more balls this year. Johnson is a little banged up for Buffalo, leaving Ray Davis as a potential handcuff for him. But I think Cook's been pretty solid. Probably would like to make sure I handcuff him though. But anyways, Hurts comes back. Take Hurts, gets the quarterback. Hurts isn't what he was before. The last couple of years, what Hurts does really, really well is that when the play breaks down, he'll look downfield and he will not force the ball. He'll take it down and run, move the chains, get first downs, but it does hurt the explosiveness of his wide receivers. And he hasn't shown the ability to, really kind of air it out. So they have a different offensive coordinator, came from Green Bay, who really kind of relied a lot on Jacobs the last couple of years. But at the same time, they relied on Jacobs, but they did attack a little bit more in the deep passing game. So I want to see how that works out. I mean, Hurts I think he threw a season, maybe a career high 25 touchdowns last year, but because they ran that gimmick plays at the goal line with Goddard a lot, and he scored a lot more touchdowns, that Hurts only scored like 8 times on the ground compared to I think it was like 13, 15, and 14 or something in the previous 3 seasons like that. So that was kind of a negative there. So, but he runs, that helps his floor. You get rushing touchdowns. He's done it before. He's getting drafted in this case as the 5th quarterback, and I'm not sure that I have him ranked that high, and I would probably put him behind it. I don't know, probably more 8, 9, 10 and you can make a case for a lot of those. That's the one thing about the quarterback position. There's a wide, people come from different areas in the country, and there's a wide range of opinion on the mid-tier quarterbacks. So if you're trying to time those, they're a little bit more difficult. So obviously the person, bet on Hurts, and Hurts could potentially be fine, because if Hurts could throw the ball 550 times and his two receivers develop and he runs the same, then he's a great value. Malik Neighbors coming off an injury. We saw what he could do his rookie season. Last year was a bust, had the toe issue and got hurt. Comes back with Goff, who has been, always kind of overlooked in draft. I got him. I did a FFPC main event. I got him as a second quarterback in the 15th round, which was pretty amazing how far I cheated it. I think I started with Knicks in like the 12th or 13th or something like that. But anyways, Goff's been like a top 6 quarterback. Detroit's, has been a high scoring offense with Gibbs there and St. Brown over the last few years. So he might not be consistent and have all the, the big games, because they will run the ball in at Detroit. But over the long haul of the season, he's going to be a pretty competitive guy where you're pretty confident that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, and he gets drafted probably outside of that in this draft. Scadabo is a problem for me. I think that he's talented. He showed last year what he could potentially do, but he also showed what he could do off the field, and that, he could be, he's kind of a wild card. And when the Giants brought in Najee Harris, I kind of just thought they were adding depth. But the more that I looked at it and what he's done in the past, and he had an Achilles injuries and he got hurt last year in week 3, like he has enough time to recover, and he's looked all right in camp, and they had just signed him in a couple of weeks ago. But people haven't really priced that into the value of Scadabo. I did steal, when I did the projections, I took it away from Tracy, and but it definitely is going to be a factor for Scadabo. Harris can catch the ball a little bit. He has over 1,000-yard rushing, I think, 3 times in his career, and he's only been in the league 4 or 5 years. So, that is a factor. So, but based on talent, and if he had the whole job, yeah, fine. It is what it is. Jalen Waddle go to Denver. A lot of people have moved him up in the high stakes market to like a 3rd round pick. Like what he brings to the table. He kind of really thought he would be a Tyreek Hill type player in Miami, but he kind of missed some time and got a little nicked up the last few years. And then you had Hill on the team, who was obviously the lead player, and he just really didn't get the shine. But early in his career, he really showed he had a high ceiling, and I think his floor is relatively high. He just needs to stay on the field, and I think he's a pretty good fit for Denver, what he brings to the table, because he is going to allow them to stretch the field a little bit more. And how much of the gap between him and Sutton, I'm not sure. Sutton has been a decent player. So is Waddle an 80 catch guy and Sutton a 70 catch guy? Are those guys going to reach higher? I'm not sure. Williams of Detroit, Jameson has been really good the last 2 years, really come on. The problem with him is that I think over the last 2 years, he had like 5 games that he put up a 0. So he's kind of sticks it to you when he's healthy. And it's not like he was getting hurt in those games, but in the end results are, 60 something catches or more, 1,000 yards and, decent touchdowns. And, but I think that he's fits the profile. He's going to be a top 25 wide receiver, Waddle. So you got 3 wide receivers, pretty good, 2 quarterbacks, 1 good running back. Scadabo will be neutral. Come back with Jaylen Warren. A little more value for him. I respect him more than most because I think he's going to catch a few more balls. Lost a little bit weight. He's going to rotate with Dowdle. So the goal line things could get a little messy again. And then even, if Dowdle had an injury, I think the Johnson guy who was pretty much a fantasy bust last year would still move up and be a factor there. But Warren, because of his pass catching, will raise his floor a little bit. Does help that, this team a little bit. So he has somebody to kind of rotate at RB2 if possible, especially if you don't have to play. I mean, I don't know if they can play 4 running backs. If it's 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 2 flexes, and one of them could be a quarterback. So I should know that. But Ferguson, I mentioned him when I was talking about Likely. Had a lot of catches, was really good out of the gate last year. And when Lamb was hurt a little bit, probably took advantage of it. But the quarterback kind of gains is 7 or 8 yards per catch. Had 8 touchdowns, 0 the year before. But I still think he's pretty secure that he's going to get 4 or 5 catches a game. He can get you 10 points or so. And I think it's serviceable with a chance to be upside if Dallas would stretch the field a little bit more with him. Jaden Reed for Green Bay scored 217 points, I think, in his rookie season, 199 the next. Last year, he had a Jones foot injury in the August. That was going to be a factor. He played okay in week 1 and maybe like 4 for 50 or 4 for 60 with a touchdown, which was okay. But then he got a shoulder injury, missed a bunch of games, and they ended up being a lost season. He's pretty much a wide receiver 4 or 5 in the high stakes market. In this case, he's a wide receiver 4, but I think he potentially could be the volume guy and get 60 something catches. He does score touchdowns. They do give him rushing attempts once in a while, not a lot, but if he got 1 a game and he scored 1 or 2 a year, that helps his fantasy value. So I think he can score mid-tier touchdowns, and he can, get enough yards and have some big games, maybe a little consistent. I on the Fantasy PayDirt site that I have, there's a thing, kind of scores where they did, how many big games they are, what's their floor ratio and the impact ratio. And he kind of has where his floor ratio is a little more inconsistent. Came back with the Rams defense, Aaron Rodgers, third quarterback, gained something back, which is really, makes up for the bye weeks. Washington kind of picking on the Genty guy going down. And so Genty owner quorum, let's see here. I just want to see there. So Genty was team 3 and Washington was coming down. So, it's really a mistake when you look back at it, like, took Blake Corum and then took Houston defense, but came back and took Samuel. You really should have taken Washington to handcuff your person right there. Like Samuel is a veteran player or something like that, but I think Washington would have been, let's secure your asset. So, you got to watch these things. And, and obviously when you're doing some of these drafts, like these ADPs are different, but at some point in fantasy football, it doesn't matter about the ADPs. You might get in a situation with a running back and you have to protect what if they get hurt, because he can take all the flyers you want to back up running backs. But if the running back you're getting drafted in the second round, you better back him up if possible, especially when he's already banged up. And Washington was, before the injury, they were talking like Washington was going to get 40% of the touches, which I don't agree with. But, he's fast. He's going to be a factor, and he's going to get chances. But anyway, so Boston, neutral on Boston. I'm not, like I said, Fannon's number 1 for me. Judy, I don't know. Concepcion, Boston, but whatever. It's a rotational player. Black, I'm not a fan of, but I think this team, Black's just a name backing up McCaffrey, and it could be easily the other running back that got hurt that's coming back. So doesn't really matter. But anyways, so I think this team's going to run a little bit of problem in the mid-tier with the decision making. I think that, more at the RB2, but overall, getting Washington maybe helps out of the gate. Scatterboo is kind of a key. Get 2 good quarterbacks. The wide receivers, the 4 deep look okay. Ferguson's serviceable. Some of the other backup stuff will get kind of tricky. Come back to last one in my 30-minute sleeper video is now going to be an hour and a half probably. But Joe Burrow, potential like all-time great season. Can the Bengals stay healthy? Can their offensive line keep them upright and then give them a long enough passing window? So got Chase, he's got Higgins. The tight ends are involved to move the chains. The running back catches the ball as a third wide receiver. Can score some touchdowns. 43 touchdowns 2 years ago. 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, sometimes they just have special years, and Cincinnati's been tortured by him getting hurt a couple times. Comes back with Lamb, volume receiver, plenty of potential, high ceiling, no complaints there. Came back and took Olave coming off a great season. They were giving him away last season. A lot of people are taking Olave, consider him having he could be a top 12 receiver again, gets a little more scoring, gets a lot of catches, was able to add big plays to it. The problem too is coming in last year, 2 years ago, he had 2 concussions, and when you have concussions, it's still a factor. Catches the discount on Love because he's getting injured a little, because he has an injury, whatever, I'm sure it's minor. They're just going to hold him out. But he looks like he's going to be like an Adrian Peterson type player. If you didn't see it, I just thought that he had that look. Pretty special guy. the book sportsbook had, I think, over under touchdowns of 5.5 for him, which I thought was extremely low, considering he's a power back and he's going to get his chances there. So Bucky Irving, a player most people are kind of dismissing. I think the Gainwell and Bucky Irving thing has separated a little bit, but Irving in his rookie season, I mean, he scored 250 fantasy points in a split role with Rachaad White, and he really kind of came on. He can catch the ball a little bit, maybe not score a lot of touchdowns, maybe rushing touchdowns, I say, maybe like 7. Smaller size back, but he can make plays. Last year he didn't. The run game, he gained under 4 yards a carry and kind of struggled a little bit, and he got hurt. But I think that if he's healthy, he falls in a soft spot in drafts for me. Jordan Love coming off a kind of a down season, kind of boring. He looks good at sometimes, and he'll kind of piss you off because he beats one of your favorite teams by playing well, and then this other time he just really doesn't do it. Like I said, with the change of offensive coordinator, the last couple of years, like they ran the ball a little bit better with Jacobs, which kind of affected Love, but Love still would make plays and stuff like that. So he's kind of like I think nobody really fights for Love, and he does have 3 decent receivers and a tight end, but you just don't trust the Packers passing game, and then who knows if Jacobs is out, if the backup running back, is how much that changes the offense as far as how defenses play you and stuff. Pitts was great last year, especially in the second half. That monster game. He was like 9 for 168, 3 touchdowns, I believe, on a Monday night. Really showed that he potentially could get to where people thought he could in his rookie season. He gained over 1,000 yards and 60-something catches. Number 2 option in the passing game. Actually, it should be number 3 because they're running back. But, they don't really have a great wide receiver 3, so he should be pretty active. Darnold, he's gained over 1,000 yards back-to-back seasons. In a rotation with Warren, can catch a few balls. That it has shown last year. He had 2 explosive games. He scored like 30 fantasy points in back-to-back games. It was pretty special, and I think I just got a text that Jacobs just got charged with a misdemeanor or whatever, and I don't know. No suspension, but there was somebody sent me a text. Sorry to break you off on the Jacobs things, but like you said, Darnold got back-to-back 36-point games. Was rotating with Hubbard, handcuffed him with Hubbard, but they're on different teams. Wilson of Arizona, I explained earlier that he was just unbelievable down the stretch. Can he get that opportunity this year? But what he did on the field does command the ball. But there's no other, really didn't get enough receivers. You got Lamb, Olave, and then Wilson, but just didn't. Hubbard's, kind of doesn't have the same luster. He's been at his best when he gets undrafted, because when he was last year, people were looking like he's got the job with Dowdle there, and like nobody for a job, and he ended up being kind of a bust. I shouldn't say kind of, he was a bust. Dallas Goedert scored 11 touchdowns last year, by far the most of his career. He's been a pretty good player, misses a lot of time. I think that he's fairly priced. I don't think the touchdowns are repeatable. His over-under, and I think in the sportsbook, they're around 5. They just ran a bunch of gimmick plays at the goal line for him at the expense of the tush push, which might come back and be more of a factor. Wow, kind of banged out 2 more tight ends. I don't know what's going on here. I don't, there's a little love for the tight end position. Tank Dell, not sure everything. I thought he was coming on looking good in some of the practices, but I'm not sure that he can get enough snaps in the game and handle like the volume work yet. And Jennings is capable of big game, but he's in Minnesota, so it's going to be more of a splash player. And Spears, I'm fading because I'm a Singleton guy. He's a pass catcher, but you can put him in. So I think that I don't really kind of think that after the Wilson pick, I mean, you got Goedert. I think that there's not enough support at the wide receiver position unless Dell came back quicker than expected and Jennings was more involved. But I think that's going to really struggle in some of the wide receiver coverage weeks, or have to go to the waiver wire, or make, hate to say it, make a big move and make a trade to, fix some part of the offense. So I would say that team in the back half is going to be tricky for me. So yeah, there it is. I went through a lot of players, talked about them all off the cuff. And so in the end, I can be found at fantasyanalyst.substat.com. Fantasy Football Pay Dirt is my data site where my projections are up right now. I don't know what will be in week one, but week one projections are up there. Week two, I have switched the projections back. So I want to get them on Monday nights because I want to get the games to the weekend. It's hard to, you don't want to update it. I've got other stuff I'm writing about and stuff like that. I don't want to update it on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and Sunday. So I try to get through the weekend. So I'll update them on Monday. And I'll update the week one sometime next week a little bit, but the following week, the week one's updates will be better, probably around Tuesday, because some of the cuts, the information is a little bit cleaner the following week. And there's a lot of cool tools there and stuff like that. And I'm just, I'm not really a web designer, but I thought the colors and stuff look pretty good. So check it out if you want. If not, for me not doing a super flex league, I hope it helped you out here, and good luck. This is pretty long, but I think it is for somebody that wants to know the player pool. I described a lot of stuff in this this discussion from just doing the research that I have, and like I said, in season Sports Hack AI is going to be a predictive site working off my projections and the mechanics of it, and hopefully the AI equation can help me improve the areas that I know mechanically with the formulas and stuff that I needed help with in the past. But should be pretty exciting. So thanks for your time and good luck with your fantasy drafts.